Welcome to the 4th round of the Rapid Tournament. Now we are facing very young talented guy from Serbia. He's already 2100 in the Rapid rating. And he started with the first move e4, I went c5, knight f3, knight c6, and he went for Rosalimo. Knight f6 is the line I picked. And he very confidently goes for e5, knight e5, and knight c3. So he's aware of this move. And with a theory, I went knight c7. He take on c6, and now I'm deciding, should I take with b pawn or d pawn? Of course, I know d takes is the best, but I was doubting maybe I can take also with b pawn. And now he goes for d3. So he's already in some sort of theory. He knows these setups very well because he might played many rounds and many games with this Rosalimo. I played knight e6. Seems like a very logical square for the knight. Later on, you want to place your knight on d4. He went for castles, I went for g6, he went for rook e1, and I played bishop g7. He's automatically making the moves. Bishop e3, I went b6, a4. At this point, the strategy for white should be to bring this knight to e4 and then slowly push c3 and d4. a4 is a nice move, just gaining space on the queen side and also threatening a5. That's the reason why I play a5 myself. h3 is another prophylactical move to stop any sort of bishop g4 in the future and eventually giving the king's gap and safety. I went castles myself. He went queen e2. I think queen d2 could be better option because it's stopping my move h6. So queen e2 is a little bit misplaced. Not a great square for the queen. It's not supporting also d4 breaks. And now I'm thinking, should I go directly with something like knight e4 or prepare the thing slowly? There is an option to go f6. But I wanted to build for that one. So firstly, I go h6. And I'm now, later on, if I jump with a knight on d4, I'm interfering the options of knight g5 or bishop g5. My king also looks more safer on h7. And maybe at some point I can go g5 and do something about this square on f4. He went rook a1. His intentions are clear. He wanna push d4. So to stop that, I go knight e4 directly. Maybe one of the only moves here. At this point, pretty much only respawn from white is to take with bishop. Taking with knight result into the fork. Moving the queen out of the way result into losing the structure. So bishop d4 is the only move, of course. He played that one, I take with c-pawn. And he jumped with a knight on e4. Now what is the plan for white? Kingside attack doesn't exist anymore. My pawns and my bishops are perfectly restricting these knights, but these knights are also very active in the middle. So they're also restricting me from some other stuff. Position is equal and the plan for white will be c3. So I'm preparing for that one. I play c5. So anytime they push c3, I won't take that pawn because firstly, I don't want to open up the b line. And secondly, I don't want to consolidate his structure for d4 breaks. He went c3 confidently, but this also creates the weaknesses. Because b3 is now open and any sort of take on a4, if I do it with my bishop especially, result into the rook attack. I don't really want to take as I mentioned, but I feel under pressure on d4. Could be a weakness in the future, so I need to be careful about that. I decided to play bishop to e6 because I have direct threat of bishop to b3. He can take here, I'll take back. I can't go bishop b3 because he can also sacrifice the exchange here according to computer. Like we can enter this position where white's knights are very strong and after d4 my bishop on g7 will be out of the game. So he has that option. I saw that he could do that. I didn't expect that he might actually commit to this initiative moment. But what I was expecting on bishop to e6 is to support this square on b3. So moves such a queen c2, knight e2. He actually played queen c2, defending the a4 and defending the b3 square. On the other side, I still didn't decide to capture here. Maybe I will do it in the future, but I don't really want to open up the d line for them. So I'm going to keep my pawn on d4. I'm going to bring my rook to the game. It's a perfect move because if white captures, I capture back and now I open the fire on the queen. When they move the queen, my next move is bishop e3 and then black is automatically better. So on rook c8, playing some things like a c4 will make queen bad on c2. So it doesn't make sense of moving the queen there. Also, what is my plan? I would like to go something like bishop to d5 and then push f5 or f6, trying to open up the f line so I can actually use my bishops and the power of open diagonals. My opponent retreated knight on g3, which is a little bit passive. This knight is restricted absolutely here. He can only come back to the center. Playing it on e2 is also another passive idea. Now I need to do something with my bishops, that's obvious. That's why I decided to plant my bishop on d5, targets the knight on f3. And I was surprised that he went directly with c4, closing the position and also allowing me to double up the pawns on the king side. Also, I can keep my bishop, just plant it on a8, and this bishop will be permanent target and permanent problem. Bishop a8 is actually a fantastic move here. Saving it for the future, no trades. But I decided to actually take, ruin the structure, and after g takes 2, focus now to open up the lines so I can target these pawns to target this weakness. My rook eventually could find some rook lift in the future, so I played queen to d7. Sacrifices and ruining the structure actually goes in my favor because anyway, he has also weaknesses. So he played king to g2, logical move, logical respawn. And now we have to look for breaks. We can play here f6. Do not play e6. That's not good. I mean, you can play it, but it's a waste of time. Your pawn is not hanging. If they play queen to b3, you can go rook c6 or queen c6. I went directly f6. So I'm threatening to take this pawn and open the line for my rooks. And that way we can stack the rooks and create some trouble. h5, h4 is another idea that can put another pressure on the king side. He captured on f6, and now I should capture with rook. I just completely forgot what was my initial idea, but I'll automatically capture with the pawn because I already played so many variations where pawn captures is better than any piece capture just because you want to keep this formation of pawns and not allow the control over the e5. But since I have already control over the e5 with my bishop, I should capture it actually with a rook, stack my rooks here and just go for the checkmate problem and pressure here on f3. Instead, I capture back with pawn and suddenly position is being equal because I cannot maintain the pressure anymore. He has weaknesses, but I do have weaknesses myself also, like b6, maybe queen b3, or he's already first in the e line. He can stack the rooks. Now I have to protect this pawn. Going rook c6 is now the best idea here. The reason why I didn't play that one in the game is I didn't like such a moves like a queen b5. And then looks like I have to move the queen if I wanna be out of this pin. On the other side, stacking the rooks now is easier for white. I didn't see the way of how I can play it here for something. This looks now passive to me because if this pawn is here, then this move can make sense because my rook will come to f6. But this is such an engine move now, to be honest. So queen b3, very nice practical decision. I'm having some trouble now deciding what to do. Also, if I move queen c7 or queen b7, the problem is actually rook e6 coming with tempo and targeting my pawn. That's actually the moment where black will enter a lot of trouble. Also, knight is coming very quick in the center. I have to be careful about it. Yeah, I do have f5, but f5 is opening up more certain diagonals. So I played queen c6, which is normal, natural move. Logical move, of course. He opted for stacking the rooks, rook e2, so next move is rook e1. I offered a trade. He played rook to e1 from d line. And now taking and king f7 is fine, but I went king f7 directly. So if he commits all trades, we're gonna get to this position where, okay, if he goes queen b5, we can take, I don't know. And okay, looks like a draw. So king f7 is silent offer for draw. I can't do anything more because all pressure is happening on the E line and nothing else anywhere. In this moment, it's really important to let your opponent create something. He knows that he might be more comfortable because his pieces seems like they're targeting. Queen targeting here, rooks are already stuck, knight is there maybe, So white still feels confident here and white wants to play for a win. But on the other side, black doesn't have any big problem. Everything is under control. So if you provoke your opponent to play for a win here, he will go all in most probably, especially these kids. They're very hungry. They want to beat you, They just want to play for the win all the time, which is not good mindset. If it's a draw, you cannot force the position. So if I'm on his place and if I'm playing stronger player, I will just go for all trades and then go queen b5 and that's it. Otherwise, if you let black play f5, then the knight is restricted. He went h4, it's a smart move. Now he want to provoke me play h5 because otherwise if he goes h5, then he's opening the light squares. And the point of this, he wanted to provoke h5 because now after f5, there is knight g5. Earlier, knight g5 wasn't possible because I was controlling the g5 square. Now I was looking at one sequence, bishop h6 and trying to put my bishop on f4, but I didn't like queen to b5, and after take, knight e6 is a very powerful move. So when I go something like king g8 now, c takes b5 and I'm in a big trouble. Rook takes e2, rook takes e2, and then he's getting in with his pieces, knight is better than bishop, and that's it, could be game over, So after bishop h6 and queen b5, I have to find some precise moves, or to move my king from this track, or to play rook e5. But I didn't like the fact that this knight is having a valuable square on d6 for his pieces, because let's say here I play something like f5, then knight e6 directly wins the game, because after queen takes d6, there is rook takes e8, and I'm just exchanged down in this position. So knight e4, very clever move, working even better with a pawn on h5, because on f5 there is knight g5 and I can't allow white plant the knight on that outpost. So that's why I spent so much time here, but on the first glance I was about to move bishop h6. Then I found that this move is not so much easy practically to handle later, and that's the reason why I brought my bishop back to f8, where he faced practical issue to continue attacking because now the square is covered. And maybe I'm not available to go f5, but I'm sure that on the queen trade, d6 is not possible to use anymore. He went queen b5, as I mentioned, I take, he takes back, bishop e7. Now he went b3, as I mentioned, and now went f5. So we are in the position exactly what I'm explaining. Knight g5 is actually a big blunder here, because pawn endgame is winning since I'm getting the passed pawn and I can use it as a decoy for additional stuff in the endgame. He decided to bring the knight back to d2, and that's a very clever idea. That's also very clever capture that he maintained earlier, because knight will come on c4 and then pressure the b6. That's actually a very scary thing now. I thought that bishop takes h4 is possible, but apparently it's a big mistake, because after knight c4, take, and rook b8, defending the pawn only this way, I don't have other options. I can't go bishop d8 because my pawn is hanging, and also knight d6 is coming. That will be actually painful fork. So that's why rook b8 is a must-played move here. That's something I'm gonna commit now. He went knight e5, check. I can go here, I can go here, there is knight e7. So I have to go on g7, that's the only square. He went knight c6, targets my rook, and now that's actually a mistake. I went rook b7. Instead of that, they should bring their knight back, target b6 again, and if I go king f7 to play something slowly like f4, and let's say if I bring my bishop back to f6, now knight e6, and then rook is eventually coming in now, and then followed by knight c4 back. Instead, after knight c6, rook b7, and after rook e6, I have bishop f6. So there is no more problems for black in this endgame. Simply knight can't do anything from c6 square. He's absolutely restricted. Rook d6. I have to be careful of some sacrifices and forks, but unfortunately take on f6 and the rook on b7 and king on f6 are never connected. I played king f7. Now this knight e8 fork is possible, but it's a big blunder in terms of endgame. Is not comfortable for white then. Now f4 is a really strong move, but he didn't do that. He played king to h3. And this allows black to play this move g5, where he actually stops f4, because then we have g4, and generally he should do that one because he can't allow me to connect my pawns. So now I put my pawn on g5, and he might regret not playing earlier this move, because now white will be able to capture. Under bishop captures, there is no further progress with these pawns. He played knight e8, and that's now a big mistake. I just take rook takes, and this endgame is winning for black. Much better to play. Because now we're gonna simply bring the rook to the middle, and then with that we're trying to get on e2 in the future, or maybe e1, and support these pawns together. He played rook d6, now we defend the pawn. He went check, king g6. He brought a king back to g2, and that's very passive. He should do something else, like maybe king g3. g4 happened, rook c7, trying to play rook c6, but that's not a threat since we can go king f6. And now he played f4, trying to stack the position, but eventually he forgot about h4. And then this becomes a pass pawn who is protected. Check, king g3. And now the easiest way to win is just to go rook e1. Doesn't even care about rook h6, because then we're gonna get around and collect all of these pawns, push the pawns, and b6 is not in the problem at all. So here I'm doubting a little bit what to play. And I'm complicating now a little bit situation. Also want to stay static, not make any urgent move, because it happens to me in recent time to blunder in this position. So I went king g6, he went rook b7, I went king f6, and he went back with a rook to b7 again. I played rook to d6, then king e6, and now he went rook h7 back. So at this point, I can't go later king d5. King d5 will be maybe massive blunder, because there is rook e7, and on rook e7 I have to go with something like rook e6, and then he can do a check on d7, then I need to come back, and so on. So after king f6 back, he decided to push f3, which is very big in accuracy, actually a crucial blunder, because after rook e6 we are getting in on e3. Even though they take, we have rook e3 check, and when they go back to h2, we just take the pawn, and now they open up everything for us. Check, king f5, they take. Now we are just pushing our pawns, rook e2, check, king g1, g3, king f1, rook f2, king e1, and now just h2. Black is completely winning, and in time to promote his queen. Rook h6, trying to get from behind and push this pawn. I went rook to b2, threatening this pawn, and also threatening to promote a queen, followed by rook b1. Now he decided to push in the time scramble, and now just after g2, game is over because checkmate is coming. He was not satisfied with the outcome of this game, because if it's a draw, don't force. The other side knows how to defend, especially these kids. They always want to win. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next round.